Hello everyone, wish you a very happy Christmas. And since today is Christmas, I thought why not record my video right behind my Christmas tree. This is the Christmas tree that I have decorated myself. It's a tiny little tree and I've been reusing it for 2 years now, and that makes me feel good. So since today is this happiest, joyous occasion, I thought why not talk about books that brought great joy to my life last year, or actually we are technically still in 2022. So I thought why not talk about the books that brought so much joy to my life in 2022. And by that I mean all the 5-star reads in fiction category. I'm going to do another video for non-fiction, but for now I'm going to talk about all the 5-star reads that I read in 2022. So the first book, or the first 5-star read of 2022 in the fiction category for me, was My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. Now if you have watched my previous video, you know that I love Elena Ferrante. In fact, she is my new favorite author of 2022, and I have really loved The Quartet, and I read some other books also of her. So I'm not going to talk in detail about this book because I've already done it in that video, which I will link in the description. So moving on, I have 14 books by the way, so one of them I have already spoken about, so you have 13 books to catch up with me. So please grab a nice cup of hot chocolate or tea and settle down, relax and watch this video. Is The Poison of Love by K.R. Mira. This book is translated from Malayalam into English, and I just love this story. The story is about this woman who finds herself in a place which is dedicated for the widows. It's called Vrindavan, and her life in Vrindavan, and then we also get to know the backdrop to her story, how she landed up there, and certain things happen which I don't want to tell you because this book is very short, so I don't want to give too much of information unnecessarily. But I think the book is brilliantly translated. The story is intriguing. It will make you nervous. It will scare you while you read it. It's amazing. I think you should just read this book and enjoy it for yourself. The fifth book, which I rated 5 stars, is Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Manson, and I love this book. This book was long-listed, or I think even short-listed for the Women's Prize, and that is why I came to know about this book, and I read it and I loved it. This is about a woman who is dealing with mental health issues and how her family, her husband especially, deals with it, and it is so poignant. And the way the author has handled the issue of mental health, not just for the patient or the victim but also for the caregiver, how much these issues affect our relationships, affects our relationship with not just our partners but with our friends, how it changes us as a person, and what is the way out is beautifully explained in this book. She never tries to preach anything, but she just put the facts out there for people to read, and it's heart-wrenching. I think I have cried bitterly after reading this book. So yeah, I mean, it's beautifully written and a topic that is done total justice to. So I think, yeah, you should definitely give this book a try. The next book which I really loved is The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. I have no words. Well, I love books about books, but this book did something different to me. It just made me read continuously. Even when I did not want to read, I was like, I have to read this book. I cannot stop reading this book. And when a book does this to you, it definitely deserves 5 stars. And that's what this book did to me. It's the story of, how should I put this? This book talks about an author who has written this book. The name of the book is The Shadow of the Wind, and now this author is nowhere to be. Nobody knows where this author went, and there is this young boy who comes across this book, and he's very intrigued and he wants to find out what has happened to this author. And then he realizes that somebody is out there who is actively destroying whatever work of literature this person has left behind. And then it gets very interesting. So there is mystery, there is Well, I should not tell you what all is there in this book, because I think I will give away the plot. So just read it. It's beautiful, especially if you love books about books. The seventh book is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. I again rated this book, obviously 5 stars, and this is because this book is so good. I'm someone who stays away from reading fantasy or dark academia, science fiction. I'm really scared to read these kind of genres. But this book had won Women's Prize, I think in 2021, if I'm not wrong, and I was intrigued because of that. So many of you have spoken very highly about this book. And when I read this book, I fell in love with it. It is amazing. So it is set in some different world. The world building that has been done in this book is beautiful, but again, it's a very short book, and I don't want to give away too many things about this book, because I fear I will ruin it for you, because it's not possible to talk about this book without revealing some important aspects, because from page 1 you are taken to a different kind of world. Well, that's what you need to know, and just pick up this book and enjoy reading it. Okay, the 8th book is actually not just a book but an entire series, and it's a graphic novel series, so I have clubbed it as one, and that is Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. Oh my god, this book made my heart go mushy. It is so good. This book is about the love story between two young boys and how they navigate through different choices and decisions that they have to make in their lives growing up, and the support from the family, the support from the friends. It's very beautiful. All the characters are beautifully etched out. Because it's a graphic novel, I also liked the sketches, the panels. It is amazing. I think Heartstopper series is something that you should read if you haven't read, even if you're not into that young adult or middle grade category. I think it's for everyone, because it's so beautifully done, and you should gift it to young people, because I think young people should read it more than the older people, if that makes sense. Another book that broke my heart into millions of pieces is The Prettiest Star by Carter Sickles, and I love this book. This book follows the life of a young boy who leaves his home at a very tender age of just 18, because his parents are not ready to accept the fact that he is gay, and then he returns home because of some extraordinary circumstances. I'm not sure whether I should reveal it to you, like why he returns home, but I think this book is quite poignant. It talks about acceptance by parents. It talks about the parent-child relationship. It talks about society's acceptance towards people and the stigma that is around HIV/AIDS. It is a very heartbreaking book, but at the same time the author is trying to make some very crucial and important points. I listened to this book on Audible and I loved it. So the narration was really good, and I just could not stop listening to this book. It was that intriguing. So definitely, if you can, pick this book up. Next book is Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. This book was shortlisted for the Booker Prize, and I just love this book yet again. This book is actually very short, and that is why I don't know how much I can tell you. But yeah, one thing for sure, it's a very sad story, I mean that is given, but it has this Christmassy feel. The entire book is it's set in the backdrop of Christmas, and that is why it's a perfect book to pick up during Christmas season. And while I was reading this book, leaving aside the fact that the story is quite sad, but the way the author has written this book gave me this Christmassy vibe that you must have felt while reading The Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. So yeah, it was that amazing. The writing was that beautiful. The next book that I gave 5 stars to is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. It's a classic, and I think I don't have to say anything more about this book. It's a classic, just read it. Next book is also a classic which I loved, and that's Persuasion by Jane Austen. Now Jane Austen, I love her. I love whatever she writes. She's amazing. And Pride and Prejudice, so far or was my favorite book, but now I have a competitor, and that's Persuasion. But I think my heart still goes for Pride and Prejudice. If I had to choose between the two of them, I think I'll go with Pride and Prejudice. But Persuasion is also an amazing book. Here the protagonist is, among all the female characters that female protagonists that Jane Austen has written about, she is the oldest one. I think she's 27 years old. So there's a lot of maturity and that you see in her decision making, in her thinking process, and that makes this book really a treasure to read. Okay, so now we are down to last two books, and the second last book that I gave 5 stars to is Everything the Light Touches by Jenny Sperriat, and I love this book. This book is set in, I can't say it is set in Northeast India, because that's one of the backdrops, one of the settings, because there are 4 narratives in this book separated from each other by a century. And the running theme that is there, which kind of binds these narratives together, is their shared love for nature. And that is what makes this book really beautiful. Recently, I came across this term called eco-fiction. So if I have to put this book into some genre, then it's going to be eco-fiction, because love for nature, for biodiversity is something that you will find in this book, and the writing is amazing. It's poetic, it's gripping. So yeah, do read this book. Last book that I gave 5 stars to in 2022 is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. I love this book. It is heartbreaking, it's tragic, but it is beautifully written. It's a love story, or I don't know whether I can call it a love story, but it follows the lives of these two people who are in love with each other, but as they are gay, they have to face a lot of difficulties in loving each other, not just because of what society will think, but what they themselves think about themselves, especially one character who has lot of self-doubts, while the other character wants to love selflessly. And it is so poetically written. The descriptions are very good, and it is something that you have to read for yourself to understand how beautiful the writing of James Baldwin is. So yeah, definitely read it if you can. So that's it. These were all the books that I rated 5 stars in 2022. I had a great reading year with these wonderful books, and I hope you also had a wonderful year, and I wish you a very happy new year. Make a lot of bookish resolutions, read a lot of books, and just have a good time. Thank you so much for watching.